Hi there, and thanks for listening. My name is Daniel Kringer, and this is the SkanFest podcast, an interview series for the Skaneateles Festival, a summer concert series based in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. In these talks, we are spending time getting to know our visiting artists who travel the world making music at the very top of their field. George Meyer is a violinist, a fiddler, and a composer who performs and has had his work performed around the country. He has been with us for a concert in which he collaborated with the Westerlies, a visiting brass quartet. Thanks for fitting this in, George.
Thanks for having me.
I'm wondering if we can just kind of start simply by getting into some of your background. Can you just tell me where you come from and how you got into music?
Sure. Well, I was born in Nashville, Tennessee, and both of my parents are musicians.
Uh-huh.
And so each of them had one parent who was a musician, and I'm third generation on both sides.
Wow, yeah.
My mom plays violin. Her mom played violin. My dad plays bass. His dad played bass.
Okay.
So, and I'm an only child, and so anyway, it's not a huge surprise, I guess, that I ended up playing violin.
Sure. Well, why and how did you end up with violin? And like you said, was it more like you liked more what your mother was playing, or you didn't want to play the bass, or?
Well, I think there's first of all, why not bass, I think is a question that people ask. And
yes, because your father's a pretty well-known bass player.
It's a pretty simple thing, ultimately. We like to play together a lot, and I think one thing that he had in mind when I was starting off is that it's not actually that nice playing two basses together. And violin is his favorite instrument.
Okay, cool.
It's not, his voice is on the bass, but he loves the violin. But no, I think that when I was a kid, when I was 5, they said violin, cello, or piano. And I am told that I went for the violin. And I've been happy with that. I guess I should say there was an important episode from age 9 to 13, 15, that kind of thing, where I was interested in the mandolin. And
okay, cool. It's tuning, right?
It's the same tuning, and so your left hand is doing the same thing, and you just kind of have to figure out a new way for your right hand to work using the pick instead of using the bow.
Yeah.
But that started opening up a whole new world of music to me that ultimately led to me getting really excited about it.
Sure. Yeah, fantastic. So, where would you say your musical influences kind of come from? I know that you kind of split this difference between like doing some bluegrass stuff. You play classically violin. So, how do you tie things in? I guess, or maybe influences and where you've played and listened to. Yeah.
For sure. It does have a lot to do with what my parents do, to be sure, and so some of the big things are, I guess maybe the place I should start is kind of like this idea of the community that my dad in particular is involved in, where he's got all these friends, himself included, that are writing and playing and improvising and doing a lot of the things, trying to engage with music from a lot of different sides, and especially creatively, deciding what notes you play. And I think that my dad has always associated that with, our favorite classical musicians. Certainly your Sebastian Bach or Beethoven or Mozart, any of those guys were, by all accounts, extraordinary players, and improvisers, and of course, composers. And it feels like, living kind of a well-rounded musical life, and so that's something that I do look out for, people that are doing that. I mean, I'm interested in that thing, and so some of the really big ones. So that's not always in classical music these days, So some of the really big influences on me growing up did tend to be people that I would see around the house. People like Sam Bush, great mandolin, fiddle, guitar singer. And Jerry Douglas and Bela Fleck, and when I was a tiny bit older, Chris Thile was coming along, and It's the same deal. It's, these people were interested in a wide swath of music, and they're interested in putting their own stamp on it. And so, yeah, that's one thing, is like people that are creatively involved. I'm always excited about that. And another side, I guess, of some of what I'm talking about is one real overlap of the classical interest and the non-classical interest. Or at least as it pertains to me and my family, is it's a little bit of a bias towards acoustic music. The classical music is a lot about producing a tone on a piece of wood, and the same is true of the bluegrass thing. Even though it is more commonly amplified, it's still an acoustic music, and so that actually feels like a pretty significant. That unifies a lot of things that I'm into. Even ranging a little further afield. My very favorite. I might even go so far as to say favorite band, but certainly the favorite concert I can remember going to. I got to hear Shakti twice in the last year. With John McLaughlin and Zakir Hussain and Shankar Mahadevan and Ganesh Rajagopalan and Selva Ganesh, these four extraordinary Indian musicians playing with a great guitarist from... anyway, the band's 50 years old now, and it's another acoustic band, and another kind of creative thing. And anyway, so that's what I would say. I'm real interested in people that are coming up with their own music, and then the acoustic thing is a little bit of a through line. Yeah.
So in your sort of development and deciding that this was going to be something that was a vocation for you, would you say there could have been like a moment, or maybe like a person who helped clarify you, this is like a direction I want to head in, performing and writing and all that?
I have a surprisingly specific answer to this. I think more so than some of my friends. I think.
Yeah, because I hear all different things.
It's when I was 13, I had been playing for a while, and I had started off pretty excited, I think, but I was getting a little less excited as I approached that age. And I was playing more violin. I had a mandolin, but I was playing more violin. And then a couple things happened at the same time. My mom started working, teaching violin out at the Aspen Music Festival in Colorado in 2005. And so we relocated out there for the summer. And I went to the Telluride Bluegrass Festival. It wasn't actually my first time going, but it was the first time where I had this kind of experience. So there are two experiences. One was going to Telluride Bluegrass Festival, and Chris Thiele would have been, 22, 23, something like that. And he was they have a beautiful old opera house there, and they play late night shows. And so he played, at 11 something or midnight. The show got started, and when it was over at 2, the audience went home, and then there was this packed backstage room full of musicians that were hanging and playing all night. And that was very exciting to see. It was, I hadn't actually, for all that I had been around growing up in a musical household, I hadn't quite been around that thing. The for pleasure aspect of it, or like that after hours thing. And then a little later that summer, Telluride has a beautiful sister festival in Lyons, Colorado, called Rocky Grass. And that festival has like a few days of an academy before the weekend. And so I went there, and I was working on my mandolin playing with some great mandolin players. And that's when I met all of the kids that were my age that were taking it really seriously.
Oh, cool.
And they were so that made the difference between seeing the people staying up late at night playing for fun, and then meeting all the kids that were my age. That was so after that, it was just kind of like, oh well, I better do that. It was actually not complicated internally from that point, even if it took a while to kind of get it all sorted out.
Yeah. You kind of mentioned actually a number, like you were talking about musical influences a little bit earlier. Are there any other musicians, or maybe even figures in general that you might inspire, you might take a sort of inspiration from in your own work?
Yeah, I have mentioned some of the musical figures already.
Yeah.
And I might add one more thing that I see as I don't know, something kind of uniting between a Bach and a Zakir Hussain or
Sure, yeah.
whatever, which is actually just the it's breadth and depth. It's the completeness isn't exactly the right word, but what they're bringing musically is formidable in that way. They're extraordinary melodists, and what their sense of rhythm is amazing. Just kind of from the very top level, but then they have all these other skills, as I mentioned earlier.
Sure,
in terms of playing with people, in terms of improvising, and down to incredible levels of detail. So I find those very inspiring. You mentioned figures in general.
Yeah, sure.
This is an odd one, and the relationship to music is oblique, but my mother's father was an academic and a university president. His name was Alexander Hurd. And he was just, he was a model citizen. So I don't know exactly how that relates to anything, but he's somebody that I do, think of. He was an integrity guy, and that's good to keep in the back of my head.
And you see yourself pulling some of that into just like your career or how you comport yourself?
Hope to have it in mind and, do a little better than I would otherwise.
Yeah, sure. Fair enough. Cool. So what do you spend time listening to when you are not focused necessarily on your own preparation, writing your own music?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I've been listening to a few different older things recently. I did mention already Shakti, and I definitely have been listening to their most recent album.
Yeah, cool.
Which is absolutely extraordinary. And Shankar Mahadevan's, my favorite singer. And so that's one for sure. I also I don't remember how I got onto this, but I recently started going through the old whatever of John Hartford's catalog is available on Spotify. There are a bunch of weird. If you don't know John Hartford's music, he's an extraordinary songwriter. He had kind of mainstream hits. "Gentle on My Mind" is an extremely beautiful song that Glenn Campbell had, and many other people had big hits with. But he was an important kind of Nashville and that music, like acoustic music scene. Figure, and one of the things that's really wonderful is how weird some of these old records are. I mean, there's a personality and a charm, of course, but the first song on one of these records is about his new washing machine and how he doesn't like it as much as the old one, and he does an impression of each washing machine using his mouth, and that's the chorus of the song. And it's like so that that's a good reminder of what we all could be doing.
That's true. All right, cool. So let's pivot a little bit into your playing and writing and stuff. So you come, as we kind of have established, you come from this great bluegrass fiddling background connection. You also studied violin at Juilliard. So how do those experiences fit into your writing and your performing?
Well, I mean, the big hope with all of this, and of course in both things, the goal is always to make sure I'm fitting in okay in those scenes while I'm playing with the classical musicians. I want to make sure I'm doing a good job of that, and if I'm get a chance to play with bluegrass musicians, I want to try to do okay on that, and as a baseline. But as far as how they talk to each other, I mean, one of the big things is being embedded with with those communities for real. Like it's not merely a matter of encountering the music and learning some tunes or whatever. It's like you want to have friends that do that, and if you're lucky, you might get to work with them a little bit, and so that so that there's a real conversation, not a chance meeting.
Sure, yeah.
And so that's something that I find pretty important in the approach to both sides of it, and then ultimately to the bringing together of it. Just so that there's some substance to like what you're bringing together. You know, you're not flavoring one of the things. You want to actually have some identity in both camps there. Let me see if there's anything else that I would want to. Well, I mean, there's all kinds of ways they inform each other. I mean, some of it is, it could be, you could talk about in kind of musical, technical terms or whatever. There's one of the things that people really spend a lot of time on with the classical violin playing is trying to learn how to play really loud. And that's like a cool thing to get better at. If you want to be able to, manipulate the instrument, and that'll just give you more tools. And that's not to say that you need to do that all the time, and it's not necessary in a bluegrass band where you're the only thing in that register. The violin's just kind of higher than the other instruments you're playing with. So, and then, with the bluegrass thing, there's like the really sink or swim thing. The thing that you got to figure out if you want to be able to play is the rhythm. You need to be kind of a responsible citizen rhythmically.
Sure, yeah. And contributing to the,
Absolutely contributing and not, not doing things that are going to throw everybody off.
Yeah.
And or just not doing things that'll make the music feel funny, and that awareness, there are versions of that in classical music, but at the same time that it's a different thing, when it is the most important thing, and to have that awareness can be kind of cool to bring back around to classical music, and so there are many of those things. And that's, as I said, those are just kind of little technical ones, but it's a constant crosstalk.
Yeah. So fantastic. I'm curious to know if you can talk a little bit about the writing component of things. How does the process of figuring out a new piece work for you? Where do you find ideas? Does improvisation play a role? How do you put things together?
Sure. I guess one of the things that the only constant in my approach to it, I guess, is actually a deliberate effort to approach it different ways, and that it usually turns up something new when I'm coming at it from a different angle. And so the kind of thing that I mean is, for starters, if I'm going to be coming up with ideas on an instrument, changing what instrument that is worth something. If I'm coming up with something on violin, I can go over to the mandolin, or I can go over to the piano. Not that I don't play piano worth anything, or really mandolin for that matter, but so that's a start. Sitting there without the instrument, just with pencil and paper, can be extremely productive. But also approaching it from different musical angles. So sitting down one day and saying, I'm going to come up with a rhythm first, and then you figure out the notes or whatever else is going on later. Or saying, I'm going to come up with some chord changes, or saying I'm going to come up with a single line melody that might even be kind of free rhythmic, like on the free side rhythmically, and doesn't have any harmony attached at the moment. Or starting from a kind of texture idea. I mean, if they're, depending on what you're writing for, if there's or just a kind of a register thing, or a gesture, something, you can get pretty vague with it, and it can still be very productive, especially if it's a different, a different approach. So, and then there are, more and less organized ways to do all those things. You can approach something through some kind of big scheme of working with pitches and, in an organized way, or rhythm for that matter. I mean, you can try to have a big concept for the movement you're working on as a starting place. Yeah. So I find, the more variety in the approach that is, I find that to be really useful. And then on a day-to-day level, if I'm starting from zero, I mean, if I'm at the very beginning of something, I will probably be alternating the approach day to day, and I will also, I'll just make sure I start my day with it. I make sure that it's getting the best few minutes of my brain, sure. which can be lying in bed before I get up, sure. Or it can be whenever, but that's a higher percentage shot than some things.
Interesting.
And so it can be kind of singing to myself or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
And then you just try to get a record of these things and start building them up. Yeah.
Do you find yourself running into any recurring or any sort of recurring themes across your work, or anything like that?
I think the short answer is yes. How exactly to characterize that?
Sure.
It might take me a little longer. I'm going to say this again in a few minutes, I think.
Oh, okay.
When we talk about working with other people.
Yeah. But, you can lead us into it.
There you go. Well, there's an Earl Scruggs quote, the great banjo player who was one of the important figures in the beginning of bluegrass.
Sure.
And who, came up with how people play the banjo in that style.
Sure.
He said, I figure everybody's got about one tune in them. Maybe two if you do a lot of co-writes. And so everybody's got one tune in them. There's this idea of everything you write is part of one big long song, or everything that you write is just... it's just not necessarily going to be that different from each other. It can be, or there's going to be some extent to which you're exploring the same topics.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too narrow, I guess, on what that means in my thing, because I do think there's a huge amount of room to, do different things within that larger idea. But I do. There's an extent to which you like what you like,
Yeah.
And I'm going to be consistently drawn to certain things that I find interesting. And for me, that, I'm going to tend to be wanting to do things that are a little bit rhythmically involved.
Yeah.
It's rarer that I am working on something that's totally free. But I'll resist, I guess, putting any more labels on it than that, other than to acknowledge that I do find myself barking up the same tree with some.
Well, there's some interesting points there, definitely. So let's get into the collaboration stuff. Performing and writing with different artists, with your father, Edgar Meyer, but also you're even here in Skaneateles to collaborate on a concert with the Westerlies.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit about co-writing. I'm curious to know if you want to just talk about that collaborative process or their specific experiences. I know you have a recording that came out kind of recently, Upstream, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So hit me with the details.
Yeah. So this, this idea that I mentioned in the Earl Scruggs quote, he says maybe two if you do a lot of co-writes.
Yeah.
And it gets at this really fundamental thing, which is that's one of the main ways to expand your sense of what's going on musically, what's possible musically, is to be in the room with somebody and be working on a piece together and trying to figure out what the next thing that's going to happen is. And they just come up with stuff that you never would have thought of because they're a different person, and that enriches your thing.
Yeah.
And so the first person that I did any significant co-writing with was my dad. We have we play a lot together as a duo, and also we've done some as a trio with Mike Marshall and as a quartet with Mike Marshall and Sam Bush. But when we co-wrote a 20-minute 3-movement violin and bass piece, and yeah, it's just, you just learn a great deal no matter who it is that you're working with. Every aspect of, people get stuck on different things, people find different things easy, and also even just people come up with different ideas. And so if you bring in, this was a piece of advice that my dad gave to me a couple of years ago when I was kind of thinking about just wanting to be writing more and working with people more. And he was like, well, if you show up with an A part, like the first little part of a 2-part song, 16 bars out of a 32 bar thing. If you show up with an A part and then you get together with your buddy, then almost like, if you got a good A part, almost whatever happens with the B part is going to be kind of a satisfying interaction for you all. The other person is going to be very likely to just have a different take on it, go a different place with the other section, which is ultimately what, a good 2-part song is going to do. Like the second part shouldn't be the same as the first part. And so that's, a real simple. So then I made a habit of, coming up with simple first parts of songs that I could go over to my friends' houses and work on a second part. And so I got a wide variety of people that I've been doing that with, and it is rewarding, and there'll be more of it public in the future. But for now, as you mentioned, a friend of mine who has a little bit of a similar background is this composer and pianist named Will Healy. He lives in New York, as I do, and he is an excellent pianist and composer, and he leads this cool band called Shout House. But his background is equal parts enthusiasm for classical music and then playing a bunch of other kinds of rhythmic non-classical music. Played in an Afrobeat band a lot over the last 10 years, and he's kind of engaged on a regular basis in more of a pop music or an R&B or whatever kind of a setting. And so I've got, what I'm bringing to it, and he's got what he's bringing to it, and we've got our overlap in terms of the classical music, and also our overlap in terms of generally being interested in other things. So he's one of the first people that I was, bringing or we actually did it slightly differently, I guess. But anyway, he was one of the first people that I was kind of doing some co-writing with. And so we decided to make a little project of it, and we called the project Upstream. And we have a little song called Squirrel that's out there on the internet. And it's been a rewarding thing. We're getting a body of repertoire together. We got, 6 or 7 songs now. And it's been fascinating over 2 or 3 years to... we've tried a lot of different kinds of writing together, and figured out different processes and things that run us right into the ground, and other things that really seem to work. And it ends up just being a highly educational thing. It's a real up close view into how somebody else's brain is working. I guess I should say 1 or 2 things about the Westerlies, which you...
Yeah, that's my next question.
Amazing.
Just talk about what you're doing at the festival with the Westerlies, kind of how that they invited you to join them for this concert. So how did all that come about?
We got to give credit actually to Aaron, I think.
Made the connection.
Yes. I had known the Westerlies for a few years, but we'd never played together. Yeah. And they're, incredibly lovely people, and I love what they do. But it is another case here of like, a kindred sensibility or something.
Sure, yeah.
they are musical omnivores. They listen to all kinds of music. They love all kinds of music.
Yeah.
And they have experience using their instruments, which, you know, have certain associations, brass instruments, and they're loud, and they're, you know, traditionally used in certain kinds of music. They're used to kind of figuring out how to make something beautiful in an acoustic, you know, meaning like a string instrument.
Sure,
In this case, of course, their instruments are acoustic, but they have experience making that work. You know, they made beautiful recordings with Aoife O'Donovan, who's somebody that I've been around for 20 years at the bluegrass festivals and things, and so it was kind of not a surprise when they were able to show it. We played a traditional fiddle tune, right. And I chucked a couple of ideas their way, and I think they were excited about that one. And they just put together a beautiful arrangement. They know kind of how that music is supposed to sound and how to make their instruments do something really beautiful on it. And so it was ultimately uncommon. And also, again, with the hybrid musicianship thing, the level of non-classical awareness in that group is very high. You know, there's some excellent jazz musicians in there, and people who are used to thinking about rhythmic detail. How do you, you know, how do you place your eighth note? How does your, you know, if you're playing a steady stream of like doobie 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 doobie, there are a lot of different ways you can do that.
Absolutely.
And not everybody spends enough time thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But of course they're real deep on that question, and so it's like exciting for them to do something that's slightly different. And it's really exciting for me to, you know, for us to find some common ground on it. So anyway, can't say enough how fun it was putting that together, and how easy they made it. They know exactly what to do. So I'm not. They did a beautiful job of something that I theoretically have more experience with, but it didn't feel like that at all. It felt just really like they were making it easy. So
you actually have a Skaneateles Festival connection, right?
Oh yeah,
or from back in the day. Yeah,
that's right.
Just mention that real quick.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this is my first time being here in 25 years.
Oh, wow.
But I was here in 1999.
Yeah.
And the occasion was, so I was 6 years old. Both my parents were here, and they were here for the festival. My dad had written a violin concerto for Hilary Hahn, who would not have been too old herself at that time. Yeah. And so anyway, I have a memory, as far as I can tell, of playing badminton with Hilary. And
oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah, but anyway, so that was a beautiful thing and a happy memory, and very, very happy to be back in the area and back at the festival.
Yeah, cool. So we'll just wrap things up. I want to give you a chance to talk about any projects you're excited about. I know you have some premieres happening. We talked a little bit about some of the recording you've been doing. So what are you excited about?
Well, the next thing or two on the docket, there are a couple compositions that I'm looking forward to. There's one, I mentioned Mike Marshall earlier, who's a fabulous mandolin player, and his wife Katharina Lichtenberg, who is also a fabulous mandolin player.
Oh wow!
But he's more of a bluegrass kind of guy, and she is, and I mean, a really remarkably deep acoustic musician in a lot of different ways. But and then Katharina is this incredible classical mandolin player, and so they have actually really different. I mean, as simple as techniques and things that they can do. I mean, Katharina can do a bunch of stuff that I wasn't aware of mandolin players being able to do growing up. And then, Mike has a unique sensibility. And so as I'm writing this piece for the two of them, it'll be with strings. And I think there are some performances that I can't announce yet coming up in the spring, but it's a challenge, and it's also like a super exciting thing to just try to put their personalities into, or try to let them be who they are in the context of the thing I'm doing. And Michael bust out his mandocello in the middle, which is a
mandocello.
Oh yeah.
So is this like a full, like a like the body really size of a cello? Is it tuned the same, or how's that work?
It's a little bit more like a guitar. It is tuned the same.
Gotcha.
It is tuned the same as a cello.
Wow, interesting.
So it's a big as Mike likes to say,
that was a thing. Yeah.
From when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Yeah. Cool.
So that's great, and then there's another piece that I'll be writing for next May if you're in New York City.
Okay.
That'll I think it's the 8th to the 11th. It's worth double checking it. A group I play with called New York Classical Players is a wonderful string orchestra, and we'll be featuring myself and two of my friends, Emma Frucht and Brian Hong, as soloists on a new 20-minute thing. And so that's like that's a situation of writing for friends in the group, and Emma and Brian, and should be really fun.
Yeah. All right, fantastic. Well, George Meyer has been with us for a concert this week at the Skaneateles Festival. Thanks so much for coming to talk.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is great. So if you want to learn more about Skaneateles Festival events or buy tickets, you can go to skanfest.org. Thanks, guys, for listening, and we will catch you next season, because this is our last episode of the season. So thanks again.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you later.